So you've said that you're against crime.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean?
I'm against crime. I don't think crime is good.
Don't you see how that's deeply problematic?
I don't think we should have crime.
Don't you see how that's a giant dog whistle to the far right? I mean, what do you mean by crime? Like rape and murder?
Yeah. I'm against murder and rape and all those things. Violent crime.
I'm sorry, I have to push back. Are you not concerned that this will push radical far-right beliefs?
No. I don't see how that makes me far-right. I think that's...
Surely you can see why these views are deeply problematic.
So this week, Elon Musk sat down with some left-wing British reporter, and I'm not sure exactly why she thought this was going to work, but it is the very typical song and dance of, oh, you're far right, you're a fascist. You know, watching European or Canadian politics is pretty funny sometimes because it's like going into a time capsule from 10 years ago where this type of stuff still means anything, right? Libtards calling you a Nazi or whatever. Because nowadays in America, that's something that we've come to effectively shrug off. They beat it to death. It has not worked. But hey, if we're to believe, maybe that could be good news for Europe and Canada because it suggests that the fatigue of this type of stuff is starting to grow. And that paradigm shift that maybe we've experienced in the past couple of years likewise is coming to those places. And you'll see that happen in real time as Elon makes a complete fool out of this woman. Let's talk about it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, just to give you an idea of where this interview goes, she tries to come from a few different angles. First and foremost, arguing effectively that Elon needs to stay out of British politics. Hey, stop influencing our elections, which is their recent biggest buzzword, because apparently non-British people are not allowed to have an opinion on British politics, which you might even say is somewhat of a fair stance. However, these are, of course, the same exact characters who never stop talking about American politics or America in general. If you've seen the political culture in a lot of these other countries, they're obsessed with the United States, but still, regardless, take a listen to what happens here.
Politics. You don't even live there.
I think of it as the sort of the West collectively.
But do you see why this makes people think that this man who has all this power, he's the world's richest man, he thinks he has a right to influence our politics? It makes people, it's why, we started this conversation saying superlatives. It's why people loathe you. I mean, some people do loathe you.
Yes, some people do.
But do you understand why? Do you think what you're doing is helpful for Western democracy?
Maybe some people do loathe me. And that's probably true. I don't care. But the fact that, as you pointed out, 250 million people follow me is that I think a lot more people actually like me than don't. And I think a lot more people hate you and the media more than you realize.
Yeah, well, certainly the British people do loathe characters like her a lot more than she realizes, and I think you're going to watch that materialize in the upcoming elections. I also think that Elon makes a great point about it being the Western world, because I know this will even be a hot take with some people, but I don't think it's inherently insane for Westerners to have opinions on other Western countries' politics, okay? Ultimately, these are very close civilizations, sometimes geographically, but also just heritage, culturally, politically, all of those things to one another. And at the end of the day, it kind of is a shared struggle. And so, I do have an issue, for example, when people are commenting on other countries' politics when the opinions are completely brain dead and ignorant. And so, yes, absolutely. Do we have those moments like, shut up, you stupid Canadian? You don't have the first clue about what you're talking about? Sure, that's true. But so long as it is an informed opinion, I don't think it's actually inherently problematic. But here is the thing. This is a line that's been invented both by the British media and formerly Keir Starmer and many members of the Labour Party in recent months, basically blaming their political failures and the fact that they're likely going to get destroyed by the Reform Party in the upcoming elections whenever those happen, is to basically say it's all a product of foreign influence. And we've seen this quite a bit, whether it's visas or, tourist authorizations being banned from people right over in Europe who are simply right-wing activists going to speak at Unite the Kingdom, or the same thing about Elon Musk. He's influencing our elections, to which I ask, first of all, there is absolutely the standard there that we could point out. Okay, so is it a problem when George Soros influences other countries' elections? Singham, that guy funding a bunch of communist no kings movements. The guy doesn't even live in any Western country. He's over in China, and yet he's funding organized Marxism throughout the West. You don't see that as a foreign influence issue. But even still, regardless, right? Obviously, we understand, it's only when a right-winger does that for his shared civilization, suddenly it's a problem. However, I'd also like to ask the question, what exactly has Elon Musk done that is allegedly foreign interference in the election? He's not allowed to have an opinion. He's not allowed to just simply share his opinion, and if other people agree with that opinion, okay. Right? Since when did that begin? So apparently, I guess, yeah, that's true. Free speech is not a thing over there, but yeah, that's simply a product of free speech. Like, I'm not entirely familiar with everything Elon's been doing with, for example, the British elections, but how is having an opinion on British politics somehow foreign interference in the election? That's literally not the definition of foreign interference. And even, by the way, again, if Elon were to sponsor things financially, he's going to give give money, I should say, to the Restore Party, the Reform Party, things like that. Okay, again, how is that any different from what left-wing billionaires do? But see, here's the thing. It's not about hypocrisy necessarily. It's rather the fact that part of the reason why the global left feels so threatened by Elon Musk is because he's basically the first guy more or less directionally on our side to get smart to the game and how it's played, right? Understanding that you can use your money and power and influence to take over institutions, again, take them back from the global left funded by their billionaires, right? But basically our big equalizer in that war, which in many ways is an issue of influence and financials and things like that. So that's really what it's about. And that, by the way, is why you've had this big meltdown. It is kind of similar, I guess, to what happened back in 2022 when Elon bought Twitter to begin with. What did they say? Oh, can you believe he's allowing free speech on his platform? Can you believe he's expressing opinions? It's not okay when Elon does it. And all that's happening there is the right wing found one billionaire to kind of equalize their massive amounts of billionaires and global NGOs and corrupt bureaucracies and all these things. And then suddenly at that point, right, when we level the playing field, it's foreign interference, foreign influence. By the way, fully expect when Nigel Farage does become the next prime minister of the UK, that's what they're going to do, right? It's going to be Russia, 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 except it's Elon, Elon, Elon. Trump stole the election. Why? He bought some Facebook ads. I don't know, right? Garbage like that, right? Oh, because people on Twitter, because Twitter has free speech, we're talking about all these British citizens being killed by migrant criminals. This is foreign interference. No, I don't exactly think that's the case. And by the way, you would think if it's an entirely foreign operation, okay, should it also likely, because it's something foreign and AstroTurf, not also be influencing people in your own country? Why are people in your own country so upset? Why is the right wing growing and having so much momentum as we speak? Why are you getting massive protests against your government over there? Is that because of Elon Musk tweeting something? Or is that because, I don't know, these ideas were already becoming mainstream in your country? Elon basically got attached to them. And then suddenly, like, the whole thing is foreign. I don't exactly buy that. But anyways, in ways we could expect. So when that attack line shuts down, gets shut down, this reporter proceeds to basically just call him a fascist and stuff. You know how this story goes, right? But take a listen.
Exaggerate the scale of Europe's problem. And
I think people are asleep at the switch and do not realize the magnitude of the issue.
I also think that your interventions, however well-intentioned they may be, risk making Europe's problem a lot worse.
How?
Because you are putting your support behind people who are proto-authoritarians, who are not trying simply to, make sure there is better integration of Muslims or to secure the borders, but who have very clear fascist tendencies. And you will cause huge divisions within Europe.
I think what you're saying is total fiction. And
yeah, exactly. Oh, what does that even mean? And for years, nobody knows what it means. Yeah, you don't like someone, you can just call them a proto-authoritarian. By the way, what is a proto-authoritarian then? Like, I understand what the word means, but what does it actually mean in the real world? Okay, they're not authoritarian, guys. they're proto-authoritarian, which is to say, like, not really all that authoritarian. I don't even understand the point you're trying to make, you know? But of course, this is referring to, oh, someone is running. They first of all want to reverse the authoritarian crackdown on speech. That's proto-authoritarian. Why? Because they're going back. Because it's authoritarian right now and they're going backwards. So that makes them a proto-authoritarian. Is that the point? You know, I'm not sure.
Really, I'm simply saying that that Europe has to have secure borders.
Okay, on that we agree
and should
on.
not
If
let
that's-
in vast numbers of people who with views that are antithetical to the accepted views in Europe, and where there will not be some level of safe cultural integration. This is simply common sense.
If all you are saying is Europe should have secure borders, I completely agree with you. Then I have misunderstood what your interventions have been on social media, because that is not what.
Okay, so first of all, she just admitted that the only intervention Elon Musk has been doing, apparently according to her, is simply social media. So we go back to that whole point. Elon's great crime is having an opinion on a country's politics, to which I say, okay, if that's the case, if you're not allowed to do that, hey, Canadians, shut up about Trump, shut up about American politics. You have no right to speak. Europeans, British, same exact thing, right? You want Americans to stop talking about you, stop talking about us. Oh, funny how they never do that, right? When Keir Starmer came out and endorsed Biden and said he didn't want Trump to be the president, was that also foreign interference? Or no, that's okay because you're doing it, apparently? Okay, fine, whatever, fair enough. Of course, I'd also like to point out, you don't believe in secure borders. She sounds just like the Democrats. You know, they say the same exact thing. Oh, well, after opening the borders for decades now, we believe in secure borders. Okay. So then what is the great crime of, not allowing people to storm the borders, of turning back the refugee boats? But then this is the whole thing they say, which is, oh, that's not illegal migration. They're refugees. They're asylum seekers. And by doing that, and by creating basically this legal loophole for all of these people, much like they did in America, and that's why, again, I say in many ways this is a shared struggle between Western countries, because the same thing is happening everywhere. You have these people who are illegal migrants. They're coming for economic opportunistic purposes. That's the entire point. That's why they're all young, fighting-age men the vast majority of the time. But they go there and say, oh, it's asylum. Oh, it's a refugee situation. And then, of course, leftists can turn around and say, oh, we do believe in secure borders. We don't allow illegal migration. We just call it refugee status or asylum seeking, right? And by the way, if all the leftists of Europe believe in secure borders, then why don't they have them? You know, do you ever notice that? But this is the same virtue signaling thing. Remember, of course, when Biden and Kamala were saying, we believe in secure borders, but, we can't do it unless you pass this stupid bill that includes amnesty. Until then, we're not going to enforce a secure border. They never believed in a secure border. Because if they actually did, they would have gone and done a secure border. They would have secured the border. They don't do those things. But it's very easy to play this defensive game, I suppose, right? Where you can try to shut down the right-wing criticism of you by just saying, oh, I believe in that. But actions speak louder than words. And yeah, that is likewise the entire point. But of course, typical, you're proto-authoritarian, whatever. Okay, again, no idea what that means. Basically just trying to insinuate that Elon Musk is a fascist. Of course, Elon has a great follow-up trying to argue here that actually nothing is crazy about what we believe. And that's very important to remember. We are not the radicals. By definition, they are. Take a listen.
Okay.
What do you call the far right? Falsely.
You think is the normal person. Okay.
Yes. Literally, you could go back 10 or 15 years, and these policies were completely normal. In fact, one of the tricks that I think is funny. One thing that's quite funny is to take a speech from Obama and Hillary, and then go to someone and say, who's sort of on the sort of what I call the lunatic left, and say, what do you think of the speech by Trump? I'm like, oh wow, he's the worst person ever. Actually, that was a speech by Obama, or actually, that was a speech by Hillary.
I agree. No, I agree that the center of gravity in this country has shifted. Certainly, the Democratic Party has shifted to the left. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people like Rupert Lowe. I'm talking
right,
about
please.
people.
It's actually just normal people.
Great way to put it. And I feel sometimes we forget to bring that up. But yes, indeed, we are the normal people. Okay. They are the ones that are insane. Their ideas at any point in human history would be considered completely anti-civilizational and insane, and they'd probably be thrown in mental institutions for expressing these views even just a few decades ago, for example, in the United States or the UK for that matter. And let's not lose sight of that, right? Actually, the radical stance is to say that borders shouldn't exist. Actually, the radical stance is to excuse and run mass cover-ups of rape gangs, sexual assault, mass murders committed by migrants, right? That's the entire point. Actually, the radical stance is to have the mass importation of populations that, on average per capita, are a significant drain on society, on the economy, their tax negatives, and then to turn around and say that this is somehow benefiting the country when by every tangible metric, including the UK's own immigration growth over the past, economic growth, I should say, over the past 20 years, it's been basically stagnant, by the way, that somehow, any of this stuff is helping us or, good for the economy or whatever excuse you want to use. So yeah, don't lose sight of that, right? We are indeed the normal ones. Our ideas were considered normal and mainstream, even among the liberal mainstream only a couple of decades ago. Whether you want to argue they never really believed it to begin with, it doesn't matter. That's the whole point, right? We're not the ones who went insane. We're not the ones who lost our mind. As a matter of fact, one would argue, if I'm going to be completely honest, maybe this is going a little bit far in saying this, but let me just put it this way. Mass deportations and securing the borders is by definition a moderate solution. It is. That's why we are the moderates. That is a moderate solution. When you look to history, how a problem like this was historically solved, it got a lot more extreme, a lot more crazy. We're not endorsing that. You know why? Because we're not extremists. We're actually the moderates here. Deportations are a moderate policy. Just consider that, right? And the idea that these people should be in the country to begin with is by definition a radical opinion. We're the moderate ones for saying, look, we're not wishing harm on them. We're not saying to treat them badly. We're just saying they shouldn't be here, right? So never forget that. Anyways, it all devolves. So, to go over everything, we first of all have tried to, the reporter here has come with, oh, you're not British, so shut up. That didn't work. You're a fascist, so shut up. You're far right, fringe right, also did not work. Here's now the point where she's now just going to accuse Elon Musk of basically mass murdering people. Yeah. So when all else fails, you're a murderer. Shut up, murderer. And this is, of course, in reference to some of the DOGE cuts, which a lot of liberals have brought up this talking point with, by the way, absolutely no evidence. I know the supposed UCLA study or whatever they've tried to bring. All of that is pure conjecture. There's actually no evidence that a DOGE cut or USAID cut killed a single person anywhere in the world. It is mere speculation. They're looking to countries that already have high death rates because they're not even countries, they're not even civilizations, okay? They're still living in the 17th and 18th century effectively. Oh, people died there. Life expectancy is short. There's a lot of disease. Therefore, now after USAID, the very next person who dies, that's because of USAID. That's literally not how this stuff works. Anyways, though, take a listen.
But zero died because
Well,
of
that's
DOGE.
what I would take issue with. Because
0.0.
I think
when funding is stopped for fraudulent organizations or for something, do you think they're going to say, well, please keep funding the fraud? Or do you think they're going to come up with a sad story that sounds sympathetic in order to get the funding restored? Obviously, it will be the latter, and that's exactly what they did.
in fact, certainly caused unnecessary suffering. I mean,
No.
No?
No.
You don't buy that at all?
It caused a lot of complaining.
You don't buy the idea that anybody, to put it really crudely and simply, any kid in Africa died because of the suddenness with which...
Zero.
I just don't think that's right. I just don't think... I've had people reporting in Africa who...
How many NGOs are there that could step in? Because bear in mind, it was...
Well, it's not just NGOs. You would also have to ask the question of, hey, we've given how many billions, trillions of dollars of aid to Africa since the 1960s, an extraordinary amount. I don't have it on hand right now. But, you would think then, where's the actual benefit of the foreign aid? Why, we basically gave them all this money, not just America, by the way, UK, many other countries, Europe's been doing the same thing. All this money to basically say, hey, build civilization, build society, become a modern country. Why is it, first of all, that decades later, none of this is happening? Because, what the liberals try to argue is that, well, in some cases, for example, when they're not doing ridiculous things like circumcisions or, whatever, that, hey, USAID was helping to pay for medicine for, poor people in Africa. To which I say, okay. So effectively, we're paying for the healthcare systems of a bunch of foreign countries. Why is it the United States' duty to pay for other countries' healthcare? Like, do you notice how inherently kind of ridiculous that is, right? And where does that end? Are we supposed to also pay for Canada's healthcare, the UK's healthcare system? Our government supposed to be the one to fund that? If you are a leftist, even, you could maybe, they're like totally globalist and all those things, so I understand why they don't say things like this, but if you were to take that concept to its logical conclusion, as a leftist, you could make the case, hey, we don't have universal healthcare in America, yet we're paying for other countries' healthcare. Isn't that a little backwards? It is. It is. And of course, their response, as it usually is simply going to be that, well, it's because those governments are poor. Those countries are poor. That's why they're not able to, say, pay for their own healthcare or any functional system, let's be honest, in any of those countries. To which I say, okay, so there you have walking proof that Elon is right. That indeed the foreign aid has not worked. Because how could it possibly be the case? After so many decades of us basically doing all this stuff for them, where are the hospitals, the roads? Why does nothing work? Why can't they now have the money to pay for their own thing? There's no greater indictment, first of all, of how badly foreign aid has failed in Africa than the current state of Africa. You want to talk about, hey, has foreign aid worked or not? Look at Africa right now. You tell me en masse, outside of maybe a few countries that just managed to kind of not corruptly destroy themselves or whatever, has anything there gotten tangibly all that much better since the European colonial powers left that continent? Absolutely not. So you can debate the reasons for that, but clearly foreign aid's not helping the situation. And so in that case, the question has to be raised, then what's the point of the foreign aid? It's our obligation to just, by the way, America was never even a colonial power, okay? I don't even, if you want to make a reparations kind of left-wing argument, that's our burden or something, it has nothing to do with America, right? We never colonized Africa. So then why is it the case that, perpetually till the end of time, we just have to pay for the basic healthcare systems of all these other countries? And why? Why is that actually our moral duty, And of course, understanding, by the way, as I pointed out, these countries are basically like failed, I wouldn't even call them failed societies. A lot of them are not even societies to begin with. Then you're going to sit there and argue that, the very next person that dies due to malnutrition or healthcare issues or whatever, that's because of the United States. The United States is the reason why these countries are backwater, complete, they've not developed anything, okay? They're not civilizations, barely, right? But clearly that's the United States' fault that that's happening. That's not the fault of those own African countries or their societies. No, never accountability there. It's because USAID was cut, guys. That's the reason why. You might ask, why can't those countries just build a hospital then, right? Don't they also have some inherent duty to do that? Is it possible that either you're talking about places kind of incapable of civilization, or if they are, okay, then, is the onus not on the government then for being corrupt, for not doing those things, not providing for their own people? No, it's clearly it's not just the United States' fault. It's Elon Musk's fault right there, right? That he did that to Africa. Can you believe what he did to Africa? By the way, again, no proof that it's killed a single person, because that's all just conjecture. Again, I repeat, there's a high death rate in these countries overall in general because these countries are complete nightmares, not even resembling civilization to begin with, right? But, effectively, there you have it. When all else fails, you can always just call someone a murderer, That's how it works. Who has he killed? He hasn't killed anyone. Oh, but speech is violence, therefore you're a murderer. You know how this type of stuff goes. Anyways, the good news is, of course, she made a complete fool out of herself, and I think kind of en masse in this interview demonstrated just how much their 10 years outdated libtard framework is just falling apart. Anyways, that said though, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.